Nobody remembered when they started calling him Ghost. Ravi Sharma moved through Galactic Station Horizon like smoke through an open window. He pushed his cleaning cart down corridors where 1,000 different species walked, and not one of them ever looked at his face. They stepped around him. They talked over him. Sometimes they walked straight into him and blamed him for being in their way. 57 years old. Bad knees. Gray hair that he kept short because long hair got caught in machinery. Hands that were rough from chemicals and hard work. Eyes that watched everything and showed nothing. 3 years on this station. 3 years of cleaning toilets designed for bodies that did not look like his. 3 years of scrubbing floors that different species kept marking with different fluids. 3 years of being invisible. He liked it that way. The station was a diplomatic hub. Hundreds of species came here to trade and argue and make deals that affected billions of lives. Ravi cleaned up after all of them. He knew which species left slime trails and which ones shed scales. He knew which ambassadors drank too much and which ones conducted secret meetings in storage rooms. Nobody noticed the janitor. Nobody guarded their words around the man with the mop. His locker in the maintenance section held 3 things that mattered. A photo of his daughter Priya, now 28 years old and working as a doctor back on Earth. A string of prayer beads that his mother had given him before she died. A small knife that he had carried since he was 15 years old and had never needed to use in space that he sent 70% of his earnings home. Priya told him to stop. She made good money now. She did not need his help anymore. But old habits were hard to break, and Ravi remembered too many hungry nights. The Kravathi arrived on a Tuesday. Ravi was cleaning the main docking bay when their ship came through. It was a warship pretending to be a diplomatic vessel. The weapons were hidden, but not well enough. Anyone who knew what to look for could see the extra armor plating, the reinforced hull sections, the ports that could open to reveal gun batteries. .12 warriors walked down the boarding ramp. They stood 8 feet tall, 4 arms each, scales that shifted color like oil on water, claws that could cut through metal, eyes that tracked movement with mechanical precision. The Kravathi were born warriors, not trained, born. 10,000 generations of selective breeding had created a species designed for one purpose. They were living weapons, and they knew it. Their leader was called Commanding Warlord Dreth. He walked like he owned every piece of ground his feet touched. The other 11 warriors spread out behind him in a formation that covered all angles of attack. Even here, in a place of peace, they expected enemies. Station Administrator Ilan rushed forward to greet them. She was Pelian, small and delicate, with skin like polished wood and eyes that held centuries of diplomatic training. She welcomed them with the proper words and gestures. Dreth looked at her like she was an insect. The Kravathi had come to negotiate mining rights in a disputed sector. But negotiation for them meant showing strength until the other side surrendered. They did not believe in compromise. They believed in dominance. Ravi watched from the corner where he was mopping a stain that had been there for 6 months. Nobody had asked him to clean it. Nobody had noticed it except him. That was fine. He noticed many things that others missed. One of the younger Kravathi warriors shoved a Pelian merchant out of his way. The merchant fell. His goods scattered across the floor. The warrior laughed. His companions joined him. Nobody helped the merchant up. Nobody said anything. The other species in the docking bay suddenly found reasons to look elsewhere. Ravi set down his mop. He walked over to the fallen merchant and offered his hand. The Pelian looked up with surprise and fear. Humans were rare on this station. Most species did not know what to make of them. The merchant took his hand. Ravi pulled him up gently, then helped gather his scattered goods. The whole time, he could feel the Kravathi watching. Their eyes burned into his back. When the merchant was settled, Ravi returned to his mop. He did not look at the warriors. He did not acknowledge them. He simply continued cleaning. Commanding Warlord Dreth walked over to him. The massive alien stood close enough that Ravi could smell the chemical markers that Kravathi used to communicate dominance. It was meant to trigger fear responses in other species. Ravi kept mopping. Dreth kicked the bucket. Dirty water spread across the floor that Ravi had just cleaned. The warriors laughed again. The sound echoed through the docking bay like breaking glass. Ravi looked at the mess. He looked at his bucket, now lying on its side. He did not look at Dreth. He picked up the bucket. He refilled it from a nearby water station. He returned to the wet floor and started mopping again. Dreth watched him for a long moment. Then he snorted, a sound of pure contempt, and walked away. His warriors followed, still laughing about the pathetic human who did not even know enough to be afraid. Ravi finished cleaning the floor. He wrung out his mop. He moved on to the next section of the docking BAY.I in his pocket. His hand rested briefly on the prayer beads. He said nothing. He thought many things, but his face showed only the patient emptiness of a man who had learned long ago that some battles were not worth fighting. Not yet. Soren had never killed anything that mattered. This truth burned inside him like poison. He was 40 cycles old, young by Kravathi standards, and he had spent his entire life preparing for battles that never came. His claws were sharp. His reflexes were perfect. His body was a weapon forged by 10,000 generations of selective breeding. But the galaxy was at peace. The great wars had ended before Soren was born. Treaties and trade agreements had replaced conquest and glory. His father's generation had fought real enemies and earned real honor. His generation practiced combat simulations and dreamed of conflicts that existed only in history books. It was not enough. It would never be enough. Soren walked through Galactic Station Horizon and felt disgust rising in his throat. The species here were soft, weak. They had evolved to run and hide and beg for mercy. They built machines to fight for them because their bodies were useless. They talked about peace as if it were something to be proud of. The Kravathi did not believe in peace. They believed in strength. The strong survived and the weak served. This was the natural order. This was truth written in blood and bone. Soren watched a group of Ven technicians hurrying past. Their limbs were thin as sticks. Their eyes were large and frightened. One solid strike would break them in half. He watched the Pelian merchants in their shops. Small creatures with no claws and no fangs and no natural defenses. They survived by being useful, by trading and negotiating and making themselves valuable enough that stronger species kept them alive. He watched the humans. There were not many of them on the station. Perhaps 200, mostly maintenance workers and cargo handlers. They were strange creatures. Medium height, no armor, no clothes, no obvious weapons built into their bodies. They looked like prey animals that had somehow learned to walk upright. Soren's information files said the humans were from a planet called Earth, a heavy world with a toxic atmosphere and an unstable climate. The files described humans as adaptable, which was a polite way of saying they were survivors rather than conquerors. Survivors were not worthy of respect. One human in particular caught Soren's attention. An old male who pushed a cleaning cart through the corridors. He was thin and gray and moved with the slow caution of a creature that knew its body was failing. His eyes never met anyone's gaze. He never spoke unless spoken to. Perfect prey. Soren began following the janitor. He watched him clean floors and wash walls and empty waste containers. He watched him step aside whenever a Kravathi walked past. He watched him accept insults without response. The other warriors laughed when Soren told them his plan. Challenge the janitor. Force him to fight or force him to admit defeat. Either way, Soren would prove that humans were as weak as they looked. Commanding Warlord Dreth did not laugh. He studied Soren with cold eyes and said nothing. After a long moment, he gave his permission. The challenge would be good entertainment, if nothing else. Soren found the janitor in the station's central hub, cleaning a viewport that looked out into space. He kicked the human's equipment across the floor. Sprays and cloths scattered everywhere. The janitor turned slowly. His face showed no fear. His body showed no tension. He simply looked at Soren with eyes that held nothing at all. This made Soren angry. The human should be afraid. Everything was afraid of the Kravathi. Soren spoke in the common galactic language. His voice was loud enough to carry. Dozens of species stopped to watch. I challenge any human who dares to face a true warrior in honorable combat. I challenge the weaklings who clean our floors and carry our cargo. I challenge the species that hides behind machines because their flesh is soft and their spirits are broken. The words echoed through the hub. They were broadcast on the station's communication system. Within minutes, every being on Horizon would know about the challenge. O Human responded. Soren stepped closer to the janitor. You, Old One, you will fight me, or you will kneel and admit that your entire species is beneath the Kravathi. The janitor bent down and began picking up his scattered equipment. He did not speak. He did not look at Soren. Station Administrator Ilin appeared, her small body tense with worry. She began explaining the legal implications. Galactic law recognized formal combat challenges. If no human answered, humanity would lose standing in diplomatic courts. Trade agreements could be affected. Political relationships could shift. Soren smiled. This was better than he had hoped. He was not just defeating one pathetic human. He was defeating the entire species. The janitor straightened. He held a spray bottle in one hand and a cleaning cloth in the other. His eyes moved slowly from Ilin to Soren. I accept. 2 words, spoken quietly, but they silenced the entire hub. Ilin tried to argue. Ambassador Patricia Webb arrived and tried to negotiate. Humans on the station sent messages begging the janitor to refuse, to find some legal escape. The janitor ignored them all. He looked at Soren with those empty eyes. When Soren felt something strange. Just for a moment, looking into those eyes, he felt a cold touch at the base of his spine. It felt almost like fear, but that was impossible. Kravathi did not feel fear. Tomorrow, Soren said. The combat arena. Midday cycle. The janitor nodded once. Then he picked up his cleaning cart and returned to work. Soren watched him go and told himself that the strange feeling meant nothing. Nothing at all. Galactic Station Horizon had not seen excitement like this in 50 years. The betting pools opened within an hour of the challenge. Every species that gambled placed their stakes on the Kravathi warrior. The odds for the human janitor to survive climbed to 10,000 to 1. The odds for him to win were not even listed. No bookmaker would take that bet. News spread to 300 worlds before the first sleep cycle ended. Reporters requested credentials. Diplomats adjusted their schedules. Military analysts prepared commentary. A human had accepted single combat against a Kravathi. Everyone wanted to watch him die. Ravi Sharma reported for his regular shift. He cleaned the corridors outside the diplomatic quarters. He scrubbed the viewing decks where tourists gathered to watch ships arrive. He checked the atmospheric filters in Section 7, which had been making strange noises for a week. A Venn engineer named Tiliush found him replacing a worn gasket in a waste processing unit. The Venn stood watching for several minutes before speaking. The entire station is talking about you. I know. You should be preparing. Training. The combat is in 18 hours. Ravi moved to the next bolt. I am preparing. You are fixing a toilet. Ravi smiled just slightly. I've been preparing for 57 years. One more day will not change anything. Tiliush did not understand. Ravi did not expect him to understand. The galaxy knew humans as traders and explorers and builders. They did not know what humans had been before they reached the stars. Survivors. Predators. Killers. Earth was not a gentle world. Ravi had grown up in a small village in India during a time when the government was weak and armed groups fought for control of territory. He had learned to run before he learned to read. He had learned to hide before he learned to count. At T12, he watched his father die in a border dispute. At 14, he killed his first man. The man had come to their home with a knife. Ravi's mother was screaming. His sisters were crying. Ravi found a piece of pipe and swung it at the attacker's knee. The man fell. Ravi kept swinging until the screaming stopped. There was no guilt. There was no trauma. There was only survival. The strong survived and the weak died. Ravi decided very young that he would be strong. He joined a security company at 18. Private contractors who protected business interests in unstable regions. The work was dangerous and the pay was good. He learned to fight with his hands and his feet and with weapons that ranged from sticks to automatic rifles. But mostly he learned to end fights quickly. Combat was not like the movies. Real violence was fast and ugly and unpredictable. The person who won was not always the strongest or the fastest. The person who won was the one who attacked first, attacked hard, and did not stop until the threat was neutralized. Ravi had neutralized many threats over the years. He did not enjoy it. He did not seek it out. But when violence came to him, he responded with efficient brutality that left survivors shocked and witnesses silent. The factories came later. Marriage came and went. His wife could not live with a man who woke up swinging at shadows. His daughter learned early that her father was different from other fathers. She loved him anyway. When the factories closed and the jobs disappeared, Ravi looked up at the stars. Earth was healing but crowded. Space was vast and needed workers. He took the first transport available and found himself cleaning floors on a station that orbited a distant sun. 3 years of peace. 3 years of invisibility. 3 years of being nobody. IT had been pleasant, his daughter called that evening. The communication lag made conversation difficult, but Priya's worry came through clearly. She had seen the news. Everyone on Earth had seen the news. Papa, please. You do not have to do this. Ravi looked at her face on the small screen. She had her mother's eyes. She had his stubborn chin. Yes, I do. Why? Let the diplomats handle it. Let someone else fight. You are a janitor. You're not a soldier anymore. Ravi touched the screen where her cheek appeared. I was never a soldier, Priya. Soldiers fight for causes and countries. I fight because some things are worth fighting for. What is worth dying for on a space station a million miles from home? Ravi thought about the Pelian merchant that Soren had shoved to the ground. He thought about the other workers on the station who lived in fear of the Kravathi warriors. He thought about his own people, humans who kept their heads down and hoped that being invisible would keep them safe. Respect, he said finally. Not for me. For all of us. Someone has to show them that we are not prey. Priya was crying. Ravi wished he could hold her. But she was a grown woman now, a doctor who saved lives every day. She did not need him to hold her. I love you, Papa. I love you too. Whatever happens tomorrow, remember that I chose this. I chose to stand instead of kneel. That matters. He ended the call before she could argue more. Then he went to his bunk and slept for 8 hours without dreams. In the morning, he woke up early and stretched his old muscles and prepared to show the galaxy what humans really were. The combat arena had not been used in 7 years. IT sat at the center of Galactic Station Horizon, a circular chamber designed to settle disputes that could not be resolved through negotiation. The floor was made of reinforced composite that could withstand plasma weapons. The walls were transparent aluminum, allowing spectators to watch from all angles. The ceiling was high enough to accommodate species that could fly or jump great distances. 2 hours before the scheduled combat, every seat was filled. Species that normally avoided each other sat side by side, united by their desire to see blood. The Kravathi delegation occupied the section closest to their champion's entrance. Their scales shifted through patterns of confidence and anticipation. Ambassador Patricia Webb sat with the small human contingent. Her face was pale. She had spent the entire night trying to find a legal way to stop this fight. There was none. Galactic law was clear. The challenge had been issued and accepted. Only death or surrender could end it now. Station Administrator Ilan stood in the center of the arena and explained the rules. Traditional combat. No weapons except what nature provided. The fight would continue until one participant yielded or was unable to continue. Killing was permitted, but not required. Soren entered first. He walked through the warrior's gate with his forearms spread wide. His scales blazed with colors that proclaimed his dominance, his readiness, his certainty of victory. Each step was measured and powerful. Each movement demonstrated the genetic perfection that 10,000 generations had created. The Kravathi in the audience raised their voices in a war chant. The sound vibrated through the arena like thunder. Other species covered their ears or adjusted their hearing filters. Soren reached the center of the arena and waited. His claws extended to their full length. His muscles coiled with barely contained energy. His eyes scanned the human entrance with predatory focus. The human gate opened. Ravi Sharma walked into the arena wearing his maintenance uniform. Gray shirt, gray pants, worn shoes that had been repaired 3 times. He carried nothing. He wore no armor. He had not even rolled up his sleeves. The war chant died. The Kravathi stared in confusion. This was not how warriors presented themselves. This was not how prey behaved either. Prey showed fear. Prey trembled and begged. This human showed nothing. Ravi walked to the center of the arena and stopped 3 meters from Soren. He looked up at the massive warrior without expression. His hands hung loose at his sides. His breathing was slow and even. Ilan asked if both combatants were ready. Soren roared his readiness. The sound shook the transparent walls. Ravi nodded once. Ilan retreated to the safety zone. She raised her hand. The arena's sensors activated, ready to record every moment for the historical archives. Ambassador Webb closed her eyes. She could not watch. The humans in the audience held their breath. Many of them knew Ravi. They had worked beside him, eaten meals with him, complained about long shifts with him. He was a quiet man who minded his own business and did his job without complaint. None of them had ever seen him angry. None of them had ever seen him fight. Soren shifted his weight to his forward legs. His primary arms rose into attack position while his secondary arms guarded his flanks. This was the classic Kravathi opening stance, perfected over thousands of years of combat. From this position, he could strike in any direction at speeds that most species could not track. Ravi did not move. His eyes stayed fixed on Soren's center of mass. His body remained relaxed. If he had a plan, nothing in his posture revealed it. Ilan's hand dropped. The signal sounded. Soren launched himself forward with explosive power. His legs drove him across the 3-meter gap in a fraction of a second. His primary arms swept in from both sides, claws extended to tear through flesh and bone. His secondary arms were ready to catch any attempt to dodge or deflect. This combination had ended thousands of opponents. No species had ever survived it. The speed was too great, the angles too perfect, the power too overwhelming. Ravi was not where he had been standing. Soren's claws closed on empty air. His charge carried him forward, momentum dragging him past the space where his target should have died. Confusion flashed through his mind. Where had the human gone? Down. The human had dropped and moved forward, sliding under Soren's killing strike and coming up inside his guard. Inside the reach of his claws. Inside the space where his combat training had never prepared him for an enemy to be 0.3 seconds remained. The galaxy held its breath. First second, Ravi's palm struck the side of Soren's left knee. The joint was armored with thick scales, but Ravi did not hit the scales. He hit the gap where the scales met, the thin line of softer tissue that allowed the joint to bend. His palm drove inward at an angle that pushed against the natural direction of the joint. The knee buckled. Soren had never felt pain like this. His combat training had prepared him for claw wounds and impact trauma and energy burns. It had not prepared him for a strike that targeted the architecture of his own body. The joint that had supported his weight for 40 years suddenly refused to function, and he began to fall. Second. Ravi rose as Soren dropped. The movement was smooth and continuous, like water flowing uphill. His elbow came up and connected with the cluster of nerves beneath Soren's jaw. This spot existed in almost every bipedal species that had evolved a head separate from its body. The nerves there controlled balance and coordination. A hard strike disrupted their signals that Soren's brain received contradictory information. His inner ear said he was falling left. His visual cortex said he was falling forward. His limb coordination system said he was standing still. The conflict lasted only a fraction of a second, but in combat, fractions of seconds were eternities. His arms, those 4 perfect weapons that had been bred for killing, went loose. Second, Ravi's fingers found the gap between Soren's neck scales. Every species that had a separate head needed blood flow to the brain. Every species that had blood flow to the brain had vessels that could be compressed. Ravi pressed with precisely measured force. Not enough to kill, just enough to reduce blood flow. Soren's vision darkened. His thoughts scattered like leaves in wind. He felt himself falling, but could not remember how to stop. The arena floor rushed up to meet him, and then there was nothing but blackness. The combat arena was silent. Soren lay on the reinforced composite floor, his massive body sprawled in a position that no Kravathi warrior had ever occupied in recorded history. His chest rose and fell slowly. His claws twitched but could not grip. His scales had gone pale, all color drained by the shock of defeat. Ravi stood over him, not even breathing hard. 15 seconds passed. The arena's medical sensors detected returning consciousness in the fallen warrior. Soren's eyes opened. They focused slowly on the human standing above him. Fear. And no Kravathi had ever shown fear to another species. Fear was weakness. Fear was genetic failure. Fear was what prey felt in the moment before death claimed them. But Soren could not stop it. His body had been defeated. His mind had been overwhelmed. His entire understanding of the universe had been shattered in 3 seconds by a creature half his size with no claws and no scales and no biological weapons. Ravi extended his hand. The fight is over. Soren stared at the offered hand. In Kravathi culture, accepting help from an enemy was the ultimate surrender. It meant acknowledging that you could not stand on your own. It meant admitting that the victor was your superior. Soren reached up and took the human's hand. Ravi pulled him upright, supporting the warrior's weight while the damaged knee found its balance. Then he stepped back and gave a small bow of respect. "You are young and fast and strong," Ravi said. "Train your weaknesses as well as your strengths, and you will be a true warrior someday." The words were not mockery. They were genuine advice from one fighter to another. Soren heard this and felt something shift inside him. This human had defeated him utterly, had held his life in those soft-looking hands, and had chosen mercy instead of killing. Why? Ambassador Webb was crying. She did not know why she was crying. Relief and shock and something else, something that felt like pride. The humans in the audience were standing. They did not cheer. They were too stunned to cheer. But they stood, and their eyes were fixed on the old janitor who had just done the impossible. The Kravathi delegation sat frozen. Their scales had gone dull with shock. Commanding Warlord Dreth gripped the arms of his seat so hard that the material cracked beneath his claws. 300 worlds watched through the broadcast feeds. 300 worlds saw a human defeat a Kravathi warrior in 3 seconds without weapons, without armor, without anything except knowledge and speed and a willingness to act. Ravi turned away from Soren and walked toward the human exit. His work was done. He had proven his point. Now he needed to check on the atmospheric filters in Section 7. They were still making strange noises. A voice stopped him. Human. Commanding Warlord Dreth had risen from his seat. He descended toward the arena floor with heavy steps. His warriors moved to follow, but he raised a hand and they stopped. He entered the arena alone. Ravi turned to face him. Commanding Warlord Dreth stood before the human janitor and felt something he had not felt in decades. Uncertainty that he had killed enemies on a dozen worlds. He had led armies against fortified positions. He had survived wounds that would have destroyed lesser beings. In all those years, he had never doubted the fundamental truth of Kravathi superiority. Now he doubted. The human looked up at him without fear. There was no aggression in those eyes, no challenge, no threat. Just calm patience, like a man waiting for a storm to pass. "How?" Dreth asked. The word came out rough. "How did you do that?" Ravi considered the question. Around them, the arena remained silent. Every species watched. Every broadcast feed carried the image to 300 worlds. The answer that Ravi gave would become part of galactic history. "Your people were bred for war," Ravi said. "Designed for combat. 10,000 generations of selection created the perfect warriors. Fast, strong, deadly." Dreth nodded slowly. This was true. This was the source of Kravathi pride. But design has limits. Your ancestors chose which traits to keep and which to remove. They created specialists. Your warriors are trained to fight other warriors. Trained to expect certain behaviors. Trained to recognize certain patterns. Ravi gestured at himself. "I'm not a warrior. I'm a survivor. My world was not designed. It was random and brutal and cruel. Everything on Earth evolved to kill or evolved to avoid being killed. We did both." The words settled over the arena like snow. "Your son expected a fight. A contest of strength and speed. An honorable exchange of violence between opponents who respected the rules. Ravi shook his head. I do not fight to win. I fight to end things quickly. On Earth, long fights mean death. Predators see you when you fight. Other threats notice the noise. Injuries from extended combat turn deadly. We learn to strike fast, strike hard, and stop the threat before the threat could stop us. Dreth processed this. His military mind recognized the logic. On a world where danger came from all directions, where even victory could mean death, survival would favor those who ended conflicts in seconds rather than minutes. You could have killed him, Dreth said. Yes. Why did you not? Ravi looked at Sorn, who was being helped to stand by two of his fellow warriors. The young Kravathi's scales were slowly regaining color. His eyes kept returning to the human with a mixture of confusion and something that might have been respect. I'm a janitor, Ravi said. I clean things. I fix things. I do not like making more mess than necessary. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a worn cloth. He used it to wipe a spot of Sorn's blood from his hand. The gesture was simple and practical. Your son will heal. His knee will be sore for a few days, but there is no permanent damage. Perhaps next time he will think before challenging someone he does not understand. Dreth stood silent for a long moment. Then he did something that shocked his warriors more than anything that had happened in the arena. He bowed. The commanding warlord of the Kravathi hegemony bowed to a human janitor. His massive body dipped forward in the formal gesture of respect that Kravathi reserved for worthy opponents. His scales shifted to colors that indicated honor and acknowledgement. I have fought many species, Dreth said as he straightened. I have killed enemies that the galaxy considered dangerous. Never have I seen anything like what you did today. You are not prey. Your kind is not weak. We were wrong. The words carried through the broadcast. 300 worlds heard the leader of the most feared warrior species in the galaxy admit that he had been wrong about humans. Ravi accepted the bow with a small nod. We do not want war with your people. We just want respect. Treat us as equals, and we will be good neighbors. Treat us as prey, and you will learn what our ancestors learned in the jungles and plains of Earth. What did they learn? That humans do not give up. We do not surrender. We adapt and survive and find ways to win against any enemy. You were bred for war. We were forged by it. There's a difference. Dreth considered this. Then he turned to the arena's observation deck, where Ambassador Webb sat with the human delegation. Ambassador, the Kravathi delegation requests a meeting to discuss new terms for our negotiations. We believe there may be opportunities for partnership that we had not previously considered. Webb stood on shaking legs. Her voice was steady when she responded. The human delegation would be honored to meet with you, commanding warlord. The arena began to empty. Species that had come to watch a human die left with new thoughts forming in their minds. Humans were not what they had appeared to be. Humans were not prey. Ravi retrieved his cleaning cart from where he had left it outside the arena. He checked the time. His shift had officially ended 2 hours ago, but the atmospheric filters in Section 7 still needed attention. Tiliush, the Ven engineer, approached him. The entire galaxy is talking about you. You will be famous. Reporters will want interviews. Governments will want to meet you. Ravi shrugged. I will be busy. I have work to do. He pushed his cart towards Section 7. Behind him, the arena's cleaning systems activated to wash away the marks of combat. By tomorrow, the floor would be spotless. Some messes required more attention than others, his daughter called that evening. This time, Priya was laughing and crying at the same time. She had watched the broadcast with her entire hospital. She said she was proud of him. Ravi smiled and listened to her talk about the reactions on Earth. Humans everywhere were standing a little taller. They were looking at the stars with new confidence. One old janitor had reminded them what they were capable of. When the call ended, Ravi put the photo of his daughter back in his locker. He wrapped the prayer beads around his wrist. He left the small knife where it had always been and used an unnecessary. Tomorrow, he would wake up and stretch his old muscles and report for his regular shift. He would clean corridors and scrub toilets and check atmospheric filters. He would be invisible again, just another human worker in a station full of aliens. But the galaxy would remember. Earth breeds survivors, and survivors are the most dangerous creatures of all.